My parents were divorced when I was a young child, like maybe 4 or 5 years old, and they engaged in a really bad custody battle over me. My dad kidnapped me when I was 4, which led to my mom kidnapping me back. My mom was a drug addict my whole life and was not really in my life. She got herself in a really bad situation and traded custody of me for an apartment that my dad had paid a month's rent for. My dad raised me with his wife, and he did a really good job trying to raise me on his own. When I was about 11 years old, my stepmom was the only mother I knew until she was kidnapped by a stranger and was murdered. That sent my dad into a really bad alcohol addiction. He became an alcoholic. He was never home. I started drinking my dad's beer, sneaking beers out of the fridge at 11. I started smoking cigarettes. My friend moved in when we were 12. She moved into my house and started experimenting with drugs, smoking cigarettes full time, drinking constantly, just dropped out of school. And by the time I was 13, I had started smoking methamphetamine and got addicted to drugs, got addicted to meth. It was all downhill from there. Like we really just had no boundaries in our life. We had no parents. We were just free to do whatever we wanted to do. And being at 13 years old with no limits, we just went wild. Partying constantly, having boyfriends, being drunk, being high on meth, smoking weed, doing mushrooms, experimenting with acid. When I was 14, I was arrested. I was very volatile, I was very out of control. I was 15. I hadn't been in school for years. I was addicted to drugs. I had no respect for my dad. I had no respect for authority. I was completely out of control. When I was 15, I met Mike. He was a drug dealer. He was living on the streets, and he had brought some drugs over to the house that I was staying at. So I got his number, and we started to hang out. You know, several nights a week, would leave my house and go get high with Mike. I got pregnant with my first son when I was 16. I think at that point, I realized the things that I've seen, I didn't want to raise my child like that. I didn't want to be a drug addict mom. I decided that I wanted to get sober and I didn't want to do drugs anymore if I was going to have a kid. When he was born, we just were so happy and he was so perfect. He was sick though, and we were like, man, look at him, he's awesome, but he's sick and he's gonna die. Mike was like, well, I know what we gotta do, like I know God, and we're gonna pray. Let's go to the chapel, we're just gonna pray for him. We grabbed this Gideon Bible that was in the chapel at the hospital. I believed whatever Mike told me about God, and I was like, you know, if God's real, then he's in this book, right? We took the book, we took the Bible, and we stole it from the chapel. We still have it, actually. But we just began to see God, and Michael was okay, and he lived. I got pregnant again at 17 and had Julian. We decided to get married and just pursue the Lord, and we went to a church. We met the pastor. We started being discipled, and something happened along the line that led Mike to fall back into drug addiction. All this time that we had come so far in seeking God and being told and being taught these last several years that God had a purpose and a plan for our life, and now I look at my life and it's a disaster. Everything we worked for and had come so far was gone. Mike was just completely strung out on drugs. He had moved out. He had his own apartment. I just began to fast and pray for Mike, and we had a time of separation. This is not where God had brought us for this purpose. Surely God has more for us than that. Some people at our church told us several times Mike needs to go to Strong Tower Ministries, that he's too wild out, he's too far gone. They gave us the number to Pastor Michael. We called him and he said, you guys have fallen out of the will of God. You just need to come and just be here and let God restore your family. So we did, and Mike came to Strong Tower. He spent his year here as a student. When Mike rededicated his life to the call of God, didn't know what our lives were going to look like, but at some point I realized that during that time of fasting and praying for him that, I had told God if he would fix this, that this time we really would give our lives to him, that we really would follow him. And I think he just reminded me of that. We decided to move to Strong Tower. Now we get to live our lives helping people restore their lives, and it's awesome. Well, now our whole family lives here on campus. We both work full-time, and we get to just be a part of people transforming their lives and watching God do miracles in people's lives. Being able to encourage moms that have left their kids and to give them hope through our story that not all's lost when you've given up on your kids, or you've let all these years go by where you haven't been a mom to your kids, that I can be a witness to them that, that their kids are going to be okay. And that's really cool.